Hi, Dylan. Welcome back to the West Coast Press Podcast. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you, Greg?
I'm doing good as well. We are recording this on Wednesday at 12:30. So if anything happens between now and when this gets posted on Thursday morning, be sure to blame Dylan for not predicting the future. All right,
Yeah.
let's get started. We're going to start off with just kind of some of the games that you've been at over the last couple weeks since we did our last segment. There's definitely been some good ones, so go over some of your favorites.
Yeah, so I have a list of 6 games I've been to that have been all really good. One of them I was at was the boys St. Francis versus SI. SI won that match 2-1. SI St. Francis played really well all the way through. They're a really good team. They have a bunch of players led by Brandon Angulo, and they have another player on their team. David Escobar is his name. He's a really good player. Angulo's a transfer. He scored a goal. So they got and they have a new head coach, so they're a young team, but they're still a really good team. They won that game. They made it interesting. And then Mountain View versus Palo Alto. Mountain View's proving why they are a team to watch. You look at that girls team play, and they're just such a good team. They have really good tactics. Their defense is incredible. They won that game as well. They had a really good game with that. They have a really young team as well, but they also have a good mix of veterans. The Mountain View won that game 1-0, and it was a close game, score wise, but you could kind of tell Mountain View had a lot of chances in that game. So for them, they were due for a score late in the game. They got one off a penalty kick. And then on Friday night last week, I was at the game of the week for the boys, which is O'Dowd versus Piedmont. And Bishop O'Dowd this year, they lost on Saturday to Doherty Valley, but overall, they've been a really good team. They took down Berkeley earlier in the season. They're just a really good team. They play super well. They're really fast and athletic, which in high school is probably one of the most important aspects you can have for a team is just speed and agility and quickness. If you have that, you're going to be a pretty solid team. And O'Dowd has a lot of that, and they have a lot of skill guys. And then on Saturday morning, I hit up Redwood versus Petaluma. And Redwood is a really good team. They are in the thick of that MCAL race. Colette Boyden is their captain. She had a really good game that day as well. And so did Avery Tucker. They both had a goal. And Redwood is proving why they are a team that should be watched. They have been a very good team as of late. They are hot. They were able to pull out a win over Petaluma. They are now in the thick of the race with Tam, MC, and Branson. Those are the main teams that are going to be probably coming out of that MCAL. And then on Monday, Deanza Pinole Valley. We will talk more about them later on with some players, but they are a very good team. They are a team that has a lot of players that are really fast. They have this kid named Eric Preston. I'll talk more about him in a bit, but that kid, he's a sophomore. And he's just super fast on the wing. They gave him the ball a lot, and he had a couple goals in that game, both of which came unassisted with him making moves around the defenders. So he was using his quickness and speed to do that. And then last night was Clayton Valley versus Northgate. Clayton Valley had 2 goals. They pretty much dominated the game from start to end. They did not really allow Northgate to have the ball in their half at all. So it was pretty much just a Clayton Valley offensive clinic. They had a lot of shots and chances, but they eventually were able to capitalize on some opportunities and score. But you can tell that Clayton Valley is a team that is going to be in the thick of a Diablo foothill race that has Los Lomas and teams like that at the top. So that's going to come down to the very end in that league.
And then, as you've been to a ton of these games and been doing a bunch of roundups for us lately that's going on the site, you've seen a lot of players that have just had a spectacular season. So go over some
Oh
of the
yeah.
top players you've seen that's dominating right
Yeah. So right off the bat, there's Noel Cabrales from Newark Memorial. You can honestly throw him and Sean Ronti together because they are the scoring bros. Sean Ronti leads the team in assists. Noel Cabrales has 29 goals, but he has been on fire. He scored every game since January 6th, and since then he scored at least 2 goals in every match. And against Kennedy and James Logan, he had 3 goals in each of those games. So he has just been on fire. Newark Memorial's undefeated undefeated. The game I was at, he had 2 goals against Moreau. The first one came in like the first 3 minutes of the game. So he is a super good player. He's a big reason why they are undefeated. And I think he's going to hit that mark of 40 goals. There's a few games left, but yeah, he's been a stud. And then another player who I mentioned before was Eric Preston. He's a sophomore. He's actually looking to play in the MLS after high school. He already has some MLS teams talking to him. He's got 24 goals on the season. And this year, since the month of January started, he's just been on fire. And he's establishing himself as a star in that team. And he's only a sophomore. And then moving on to some girls players, we have Marin Jones from TAM. She was a first league selection last season, and you can tell why. Tam has won 8 straight games, and Jones, she scored 7 of the last 8 matches, and she has 16 goals on the season, and she leads the team in scoring. So she's just picking up right where she left off last year. She's a cog on that team. She's a superstar. Definitely a player that is going to be a big, big factor in the playoffs. And then the last player is Ali Sai. I'm sorry if I'm saying her, her name wrong, but she's a Branson player. She has 13 goals on the year, but 8 of them have come in January alone. And she had 2 goals and 3 assists against San Rafael. And she really just has been dominating this month. I have gotten a lot of her name has been in our roundups a lot over the last couple weeks. So she's just a star in the making. So yeah, I mean, those are players that I think are just going to really, really jump off the page even more come playoff time.
Yep, and then we're gonna jump over to the rankings portion of this. I want you to go through the top 5 teams and then maybe a sleeper team on each side that can jump into that top 5.
Yeah, absolutely. So right now for boys, we have St. Francis at 1, Mountain View at 2, Berkeley at 3, Doherty Valley at 4, and Cardinal Newman at 5. All of those teams have proven this year that they are teams to beat. St. Francis is still undefeated. They only have one tie, and they tied to Sarah on the road. But ever since then, they've been on fire. Mountain View is 13-1. They only have one loss to Carlmont, but it was in December. But since then, they have just been absolutely crazy. They had a game against Sarah that they were down 2-0. They came back and won 3-2 after in the second half. So they are on fire. Berkeley's 15-1. They had a loss to O'Dowd. It's a bit of an upset, but the way O'Dowd's been playing, it's understandable. Ever since then though, they have just been on fire. They had a 3-0 win over Mount Eden in their most recent game, and Berkeley is looking like a team that's going to be a threat in the playoffs. Doherty Valley's 8-3-3. They've won the last 2 of 4, including beating Cardinal Newman and O'Dowd, 2 teams that are really, really good as well. So Doherty Valley is a team that's going to be tough. They also tied De La Salle, who's been really good. And then at 5, we got Cardinal Newman at 14-2. They are just a really good team this year. They've won 4 of the last 5. They beat Windsor, Maria Carrillo, Montgomery, and then they just dominated Rancho Cotati at home. They did lose to Doherty Valley, but that's understandable as well because Doherty Valley's been great. But like I said, I do think that there's the team that I think can sneak in is Newark Memorial. They are 15-0-3. They are currently in number 9. But they have played some great teams. They beat SRV, Moreau, and James Logan. So they've beat some tough teams, and they're proven that they really want it. So I do think Newark Memorial is a sleeper team for the boys' side that can sneak in. Moving on to girls, though, Midi at 1, St. Francis at 2, Lee at 3, SRV at 4, Monte Vista at 5. Now, the common theme with the first 2 teams is Midi and St. Francis both have 11 wins on the year. Midi has one tie. They tied to St. Francis at home, which was a good game. Greg was at that one. Apparently, it was a great game. St. Francis, they have a loss to the only loss that they have is in a SoCal tournament. But other than that, in the Bay Area, they have been dominant. They beat Presentation 3-0 in their most recent game, and they are also a great team. Lee is undefeated at 12-0. They are a team who I personally think is going to be a serious contender to make a really, really, really deep CCS playoff run. They are on a tear, and they have just absolutely looked like a team that is really, really, really ready to make their mark. And then SRV 10-1-1. They fell to Cal High at home, but those are rivalry games, so that was a close game. But other than that, they've been really good as well. Monte Vista, they're on a three-match streak. They beat Foothill, they beat Dublin, they beat Cal, they beat Tam, Berkeley, Campo. Like they beat some really good teams. So Monte Vista is really, really good. Um, and then honestly, a team I think that is going to start really making its mark, like I said, is Redwood. They're number 7, but they're 11-3-1, and they have been really good as of late. Like I said, Avery Tucker and Colette Boyden are leading that squad. They're on a 2-match streak right now, and they have some tough games coming up against San Marin and Tam, which are really going to tell how good they are. But if the Giants keep playing the way that they have, I think they have a chance to sneak into that top 5 at some point this year.
And then going off the top three in those girls rankings, you have some CCS predictions that you want to make, and those top three are going to be a major conversation in that prediction on the girls side.
Yeah, so what's interesting about the playoffs is NCS does not do open, unfortunately, but CCS does. Now for the girls, the teams that I think are going to be a shoe in for the open are Midi, St. Francis, Lee, Mountain View, and SI are the main ones. Midi, St. Francis, obviously were in it last season. Lee and Mountain View and SI though, those team. I mean, Lee is undefeated. It's hard to keep them out. Mountain View is also a great team. But I mean, SI has a really tough schedule, and they've been playing it really well. Let me look at who they played so far, just to give you guys an idea of the types of games that they played. They're 9-3-2, and they've played teams like Sacred Heart Prep, Menlo Atherton. They played Midi, but and lost, but that was a close game. They played Presentation One, Valley Christian. I mean, they're in a really tough league, and they fared pretty well. So yeah, they've done well.
Sorry, I muted myself. Go to the boys' side and try and see what kind of predictions you have for that side.
Yeah, so for boys' side, let me just run it through real quick. Because I'm sorry I'm talking too much. So the boys' side, it's gonna be St. Francis, I think, Mountain View, Midi, and Carlmont. Carlmont was not an open team last year, but the teams that they have beat this season and the way that they've played, I think it's gonna warrant them an open division selection this year.
Awesome. I'm going to give you, I know you went over your 10-minute allotment this time, but I do want to give you, because you're a Niner fan, give us your predictions for this NFC Championship game.
Ooh, in all seriousness, I think it's going to be a great game. I do think Detroit's offense is high powered, but Brock Purdy is him. So it's going to be a 31-24 game. I think it's going to be a lot closer than people say it is, just because Detroit's just a good high powered offense. But yeah, it's going to be a great game. If you haven't checked out Jack's story on Jared Goff coming back to the Bay, be sure to do that. It's a great story on it. But yeah, it's going to be a great game on Sunday.
I'm sorry, I just 31-24, because in our group chat, I
Oh,
remember seeing Niners by
I was just
36.
talking crap, I mean, for me, in all seriousness though, it's the NFC Championship game. It's going to be a great game. It's not going to be a blowout. It can't be a blowout. If it is, it's going to be disappointing.
And this is the reason I hate the Niners, is because of Mr. Dylan Grausz. So thank him for my Niners hatred. Anyways, go read all of his stories on westcoastpreps.com. He's been killing it with the soccer coverage this year. Thank you a lot for coming on.
No worries.